Do you ever come up with a plan for a side project, writing down all the different details for the ideas and features, only to keep postponing the side project until it just drops off your to do list? Well, this wasn't us. Despite having so many plans and goals for Project Function, we've just never once had the luxury of postponing. Instead, we found ourselves getting carried along by the unexpected growth and momentum of Project Function. To first off, allow us to introduce ourselves. My name is Rizwana Akmal Khan, and I am a customer success engineer at Forcell. And with me is,
Daryl, Cecile, and I'm a software engineer at Capital One.
and together we are the co founders of a thing called Project Function. We're very grateful to be here today, and we hope that you'll allow us to lift up the veil of mystery over the origins of Project Function, its purpose, what we do, what we've been up to, as well as take a look at where we're going.
So let's take you back to the beginning. We were instructors for an organization that aimed to get more women into tech through providing programming courses. However, we were unsatisfied with their chosen method of delivery and overall lack of direction with their approach. So we started considering if there was a way to improve the content that we had to deliver so both the learners and the instructors could get a better experience.
In the time it took us to get from the campus that we were delivering this course at to a bus stop in the city, we had come to the decision that we were going to run our own thing for Nottingham.
We started to improve the content, bringing each topic up to date as quickly as possible and adding interactions with the learners. And then we were tweaking the sessions based on frequent feedback from the learners, using what worked and then ditching what didn't. Where the sessions before were all pre-planned and the resources were all reused across groups and cohorts, our changes meant that we were tailoring everything, like all the contents to the learners' needs based on a weekly basis.
And even after all these fixes and these improvements, we did this until the course was over, until the end. But even then, it left us with this weird nagging feeling because we knew that more learners were going to go through the same lacking experience and that instructors in the future would be facing similar challenges of being given the task of delivering outdated content with next to no support. And that's what led us to basically start questioning. And the questions that we had, these three major looming questions on our brain continuously, were present from that moment.
I guess the first major question was what were we trying to achieve? We already had organizations like this running courses for free to get people into tech, but what was it that we were trying to do? And I guess we already knew, I guess that question was there, but deep down we knew like the main aim at the time was to improve upon what we were already doing and see if we could do it even better. So I guess the main question was, okay, what were we trying to achieve for us with what we were doing and how we were going to do it?
The next one was who our learners are. It was important that we prioritize thinking about who were those that were intentionally or unintentionally left out, and who were we going to focus our resources and be providing these opportunities for. Um, that was very important to us, even from the start.
And I guess the third important question we had was to do with the value of our content. So we were, we had all these plans to improve the content, improve the delivery, but at the end of the day, it wouldn't really be worth anything if it didn't provide any, anything of value to the learners and to the instructors. So that was like a third major question that we kind of kept like in our heads with pretty much any decisions we were making at the time, to make sure that whatever we did, the content would still be valuable to the learners.
Now, these three questions, primarily taking up all spaces inside our brains, meant that the only natural thing we could do was just get into action. We knew the rough shape of the project and the rough shape it was going to take, and we kicked into action by partnering up with a local company called Unidays, and we announced our first wave. Now, what wave means is it's just our version of a course. We call our courses waves. So, in our first wave, we had a mixture of people, some from the previous course that we just had taught at with the other program. And then there were others who we just hadn't ever met. They just come across Project Function through different means, I'd imagine. And all these people were from various different backgrounds, career paths, ages. So it was a good mix of people.
Now we had the plan and we knew that like how we were going to start it. So I guess now it was all about the journey. But before we go over that, I think it's worth mentioning this at this stage it was all just like a project. It was a side project after all. We just wanted to see like if we could do better and to see if we could make an impact. So yeah, this side project, we started this side project to try it to see if we could do better, and it worked great. People were happy. There was a lot of interest, and it was a clear success. So we decided to go for round two, and then the project took off and became something none of us really expected. Um, it was also around that time that we found ourselves with a sponsor called JH. They're a Nottingham-based e-commerce agency, and that really gave PF its first boost of growth.
We didn't really have a business plan or anything back then, but having that initial growth boost meant that we decided to reach just beyond, even beyond the students at the university campus. So we targeted beyond NTU students and opened up the program to the Nottingham tech community to see if we could reach more people, whether they were looking for a career change or those looking to learn a new skill like programming. And that's when we realized that a lot of the time, the learners who did sign up for our courses didn't really know whether they wanted to work full time in this tech industry. They were only signing up because we were offering them a zero commitment trial. This was new information to us. We didn't realize we were doing that. Our focus then was just doing something better, doing something that gave these learners foundational, concrete programming knowledge concepts without necessarily positioning ourselves as a conveyor belt into tech. So our priority was very simply to be giving the knowledge in its best form possible.
I guess also before we like came to that realization, I mean, we were still, when we started all of this, we were still at uni, so quite fresh into this whole, I guess, situation. So we didn't really have a blueprint, and I guess the only thing we could really look up to as, I guess, inspiration, and was boot camps. So we looked at boot camps and compared what they were doing and with what we were doing, and kind of aligning our goals and our execution to that. But once we realized that actually zero commitment trials are what people want from PF or what they found useful, then things kind of changed, and we found harmony, and we concluded that we weren't a boot camp. Where before we were measuring ourselves against those boot camps, despite not having the same level of financial access or to resources or time, we were now kind of free from that, and we could start looking, I guess, to ourselves, and we can kind of shape PF to be more aligned with that, and to allow that sort of zero commitment, participation to happen. Because I guess at the end of the day, for us, the true measure of success is the learners and what they get out of it. If those learners come along and they find it useful, then that's great. We'll help them get into the industry. We'll help prepare them. We'll work with them. But if those learners decide, oh, you know what, this isn't actually for me, or this isn't really what I want to be doing, then that's fine. They can walk away and not even have, like, they could walk away guilt free, not even have to worry about anything. And being able to provide that is, after all, what really truly matters.
Um, and despite that state of harmony, it wasn't all sunshine, so to say. Throughout the journey, we faced tons of challenges, ongoing, some unexpected, some surprising. Uh, but what we believe is that these very challenges shaped PF to what it is today. Um, we had to align ourselves using different tools and practices to be able to face these challenges and to keep uh, functioning and keep the momentum. One of the main ones that we started from the beginning and kept up was group curriculum planning, which meant preparing our course content that we were planning for our waves with the entire team, so that everyone felt supported. Uh, it meant that our course content was designed with opinions, thoughts, feelings, learning styles of a diverse team, and it meant that we weren't just siloed off to our own thoughts and the way we wanted things to be. Anyone in the team had a say. Anyone could change the way we were delivering these sessions, and a lot of times we learned from the feedback that our team provided, which they had gained from feedback of the learners in the waves. So it was a very natural way for us to improve on a weekly basis, because our feedback loop was so tight, um, that it meant that the team was doing its best job possible.
Yeah, I guess also I can kind of I expect like a few people in the audience already thinking, well, taking a lot of feedback from a lot of different people doesn't sound like things can actually get done. But I guess it's all about, like, we're still at a stage where we can kind of do that, quite comfortably, and still have PF go in, the right direction, the right general direction. Everyone still gets a say. They still, we still have that discussion, because I guess from that discussion we can kind of see a better way forward, because we might not already have thought about it, or the way that we were already going just needed tweaking and whatnot. And I guess that allowed external perspective. um, but going back to the case of reacting to growth and navigating growth, another thing we ended up you know doing is creating campus. Now, a lot of people don't really know, like, or have never heard of PF Campus before, but campus is a tool that we use primarily now for learners and instructors. But in short, it's a tool that we use to help us react to the increasing need for organizing learners, instructors, communication, and content. Initially, it was created as a like platform for us to upload tasks and work that our learners could do in their own time. And then once they were done with that work, they could submit it for feedback, and all of that would happen kind of asynchronously to the courses. So there was no harsh deadlines, there was no tough expectations on the learners to submit on a specific date, because we, like, after all, we knew the learners were, some of them had like day jobs, so when they were taking part they were already they already had a busy schedule. So this kind of allowed us to fill the gap with PF, to allow people to learn during our courses, but then also take it away in their own time, and go a bit further in their own time and get the feedback they needed. But as PF grew, the needs changed. Like, the needs of PF as a whole changed. So, for example, when we started, when like the need to track attendance, for example, came about, we started using Campus to monitor attendance. And now it's like, it's grown quite a fair bit. So now we use it for work. So to set tasks, to give feedback on tasks, to automate feedback on tasks, to track engagement, to see how people are doing, how people are feeling, whether any specific learners need more attention or need more support, to see if the content we had needed tweaking, to see how useful it was, how important it was to the learners that we had. Because I guess for us, um, understanding the needs of the learners kind of allows us to personalize the content a bit more, so it makes it easier for newcomers in the field to kind of get on board quicker. So yeah, campus kind of really became the backbone of PF. Like it became the supporting role for PF, filling in gaps where we needed it to, and acting as support for both learners and instructors. So yeah, that's one way we use tools to help navigate that growth. Another thing we had to start thinking about during this whole unexpected growth was looking at other financial means. So we had to start thinking about looking beyond sponsorship to allow the community to provide their support. When we had our sponsor, our first sponsor, we had individuals from the community approach us asking if they could help support, if there was any way they could sponsor us as individuals, whether that would be to help with printing costs or marketing materials. So we started thinking, well, yeah, our sponsorship packages at the time were not very friendly to individuals. It was mostly targeted at big companies, but then we started thinking, seeing as Project Function is, meant to be a community thing, we thought, well, it shouldn't just rest on companies. Individuals should be able to get involved as well. And that's where we started opening up avenues for community members to get involved. And that's how we ended up with a Patreon.
With the with the marker of knowing that our learners had um, were content with the waves, so having a learner satisfaction being visible on campus and having the support of our patrons, so on the Patreon, um, having these foundations meant that we could realize that PF was growing and it was touching more areas of impact. Um, and thus, focused efforts were needed to tackle particular challenges, one of which was our learners not having the right equipment for joining these waves. So previously, when we were based on a university campus, the university had laptops available that we could provide to our learners. But as the pandemic hit, people went remote first or remote completely. It meant that the learners that we were reaching didn't even have the right computers or internet, and they were disadvantaged to even start with, so they weren't going to be senior leadership in a company if they didn't really have the things to even be joining the industry. And that meant that we announced PF Access for All. It was a very self contained project. So we raised funds to be able to provide laptops, internet, uh, to those who needed it. And though we haven't reached the full amount just yet, we are very much in the capacity of provisioning this now to those who need it with the support of uh, our sponsors and our patrons mentioned earlier. The other one was aftercare. So we realized that we needed to provide support, guidance to newbies in the tech industry. So though our learners have done like a 9 week session, like 9 week wave, they still needed help. They needed someone to be a listening ear if they're struggling getting that first job, or if they need just a second review on their CVs. Aftercare meant that it was another self-contained initiative. And what was interesting about Aftercare was, once we realized that we had to go kind of beyond our schedules and availability and our plate, so you will. Um, Aftercare was led up by a PF team member, Mel. Um, And it meant that what she brought to the table and her ideas and her initiatives with that program, and that it grew beyond just our limitations. And that was a very exciting thing to see, um, that it was possible to start self-contained, really impactful projects in a side project itself.
With that, so the creation of programs, the creation of tools like Campus, being able to analyze our own financial situation, having group plannings, and being able to give I guess, looking at our own journey during this whole, navigation of growth. It kind of put us in a position where we were able to also start looking into the future. I mean, already with all of those, reactions, we were already kind of planning for the future, but we didn't really know it at the time. Um, but yeah, after we came to that realization, it was clear that, what, we are now in a better position. We can start looking into, the direction that we're going and how we're going to get there. And, is there anything we need to start doing? And so we started realigning ourselves a bit more and realigning the overall mission a bit more community led. And out of that, we, out of that discussion, we ended up with an idea, and we thought, okay, well, we should expand our course delivery offering to allow the wider community to get involved. So now we basically have, we've set up like changes, we've set up um, like I guess, the direction to allow anyone with experience in the field that wants to run a course with PF to do so. For example, we've recently finished a course, a 9-week course called the Intro into Game Dev with Unity. And that was run by Jamie DeMillion and his instructors. And that's been a great success, despite the fact it was, our first game dev related um, course, having only purely done web development and design in the past.
What's also exciting is we prioritize the same vision for impact, in the sense that when we reach our learners, the same way we will reach our instructors and course leads. So people who don't have a ton of experience teaching are given the support, given the resources, and then given just the chill environment to do the best job they can, teaching people something that they're excited about. So that's very important to us, that we don't just prioritize, um, designing this platform for those who already have a lot. It's for even those who want to start off on this journey of being a well-renowned instructor. So that was very interesting to see with our game dev course. And what all of this allows us to do in the terms of future proving ourselves is, um, we have an answer for this scenario that this side project needs to be picked up by someone entirely. And we don't have that worry, at least, because we know that we've done things and uh, we have experiences that we can pass on, and uh, obviously a lot of learnings as well. So anyone else who needs to pick this up, if needed in a future time, has all the foundations to build upon.
Yeah, building on that, I guess, also, it kind of it made us more aware of, how we could improve like our efforts beyond PF, so that it was more like like it had a community-wide impact beyond PF. And initially, so a couple of months ago, we initially had a discussion internally at Project Function about a tech hub. It was around the time where we were initially looking for finding a permanent home for PF and somewhere in Nottingham. And we realized, well, there's no tech hub. Now, yeah, okay, we could just go and rent out, a hot desk or like rent a room. But that, it was the whole discussion went further than that, and we thought, well, if there was a tech hub, it, like, look at all of the look at other cities like Birmingham, Lincoln, London. They have like great tech community and a great tech hub. In Nottingham, we have a great tech community, but no tech hub. So there's no, one single place where you can find like tech related communities. So that's where the initial discussion started. And then recently, when we were thinking about our improvement efforts for the wider community, we started revisiting that initial discussion. We had a few conversations with people in Nottingham. We had conversation with someone who helped set up the Lincoln Tech Hub, and quite interesting ideas would bounce back and forth. It's an ongoing conversation, so if you're interested, get in touch. If you have any ideas or any proposals, or anyone that wants to take part or know where this is going or how it's going, reach out to us. And yeah, so that's been our journey so far, our origins, our unexpected growth, and having to navigate that growth, planning for the future and looking to the future. And yeah, there's plenty more, I guess, to come. Our biggest takeaway from this, I guess, would be that you can't plan for growth. You either go with it and run with it, or you get dragged by it. But if you try to stifle that growth, that's when, I guess, your project kind of fails, or the project kind of, doesn't meet its full potential. And I'd like to say we've learned that the hard way, but I feel like we've been fairly receptive of it. I mean, we never expected PF to grow as fast or as big as it has in such a small amount of time. But it's been nice to see. It's been nice to see the impact that it's truly had on the community.
And throughout this journey of trying our best to spread that impact, we did face many ups and downs. But what was important throughout this journey, taking out everything else, was being surrounded by a supportive community. So it meant that we weren't really ever, left alone to it. And it meant that we were able to tackle just about anything, turning the valleys into peaks. And that's been great. Thank you for listening.